Good morning. I'm actually pinch hitting for another board member who is not here today, Gene McLaurin. He lives in Rockingham, just right down the road from here. He owns a commercial oil distribution company, and he is part of the working group that has put this conference together. He's out of the country actually on a business trip right now. He's really bummed out that he couldn't be here, but he is living this vicariously because he wanted me to text him photos. So I've been texting him photos, the past few days, or yesterday, and will again today. So Gene, and Gene will be watching this on the internet. So we miss you, Gene. And Gene, it's a shame because he doesn't get to introduce a really good speaker. And I have written what I have to say about him, and Kelly Dawson has given me the script, so I will read it exactly the way it's been written. And I'm excited about doing this. Our infrastructure speaker today is a man who previously worked as a senior advisor, fiscal affairs for the governor, nonprofit policy director, and a legislative budget analyst. He has also served on numerous state and national commissions focused on budget, tax, agriculture, and economic development issues. That's what's written. Let me add one more thing from my own perspective. If someone came into this room right now and asked us to say, take out a sheet of paper and write down on that sheet of paper a list of names of people who have made North Carolina a better place over the past 20 years or so. We would all write down a lot of names, but I would bet that all of our lists would include this guy's name. And that's quite a tribute to a body of work and to a life devoted or a career devoted to North Carolina. So with that, where are you, Dan? Dan Gerlach.
Two things I want to talk about, then I'm going to be the Baptist preacher and talk about three more things. I'm not Baptist, so I'm not limited to three. Two things to start with. I have been the Golden Leaf Foundation president for almost 10 years. In that time, I've served with 5 commerce secretaries, 4 governors, 3 speakers of the North Carolina House, 2 president pro temporaries of the Senate, and 1 EDPNC and a pear tree. The point of this is that I can assure you of this. If you're in rural North Carolina, one thing you do not want to be is a victim. It's, oh me, here we go. The tobacco's gone, the textile's gone, apparel's gone, everything sucks. What are we going to do? This is not a key to victory. Everybody in Raleigh, nobody remembers us. Nobody, they go up there to Raleigh, they forget all about us. I can assure you of this, that and all those leaders, no matter what the party, no matter what they come from, if we can get projects and opportunities for jobs and private investment in rural North Carolina, that our leaders are prepared to do it. And they have taken bold action. It's not just words. They have been hard about it. But what we have to do, what Golden Leaf has to do, what you have to do, is get us to a point where we can get them close enough to close the deal in an increasingly competitive world. There is no conspiracy about trying to ignore rural North Carolina, ignore eastern North Carolina, ignore western North Carolina, ignore the middle of North Carolina. There is all about getting us close enough to maximize the opportunity where people want to create jobs, want to relocate jobs, want to expand jobs, can be able to be so. And that brings me to the second point, the whole point of why EDPNC brings us together. Why EDPNC? Frank Emery and Chris Chung came to me and said, we need to do this. We're serious about this. And here's why EDPNC needs to do this versus the rest of us who have gone to a lot of conferences, who do these jobs for a living, right? Who bring rural people together to talk about things to move us forward. This is not new. But what I challenge EDPNC, and we have meetings every week, and we talk about projects, we talk about what we're going to do our jobs better. And what I think is helpful is for our developers, the EDPNC and their team of developers and tourism leaders, small business assistants and everything else, is to tell us, look, here are things where we think rural North Carolina might need to focus on to help us do our job of close deals in these places. It is all about economic development. This is not about education and workforce development and infrastructure and healthcare and leadership in a vacuum. It is all about helping the men and women who serve us in the EDPNC and the North Carolina Department of Commerce get there to close the deal because we've done our job. All right, now I can go into the preaching. Okay, now we got, look, Golden Leaf, there you go. about Golden Leaf. The reason why I bring this up, how many of y'all know Golden Leaf? Raise your right hand. Your other right hand, some of you spend too much time out. The reason why I bring our mission statement up is because we are not just about leadership and grants making. When I heard Representative Sain and Senator Brown talk today, I said, what I should do is go up there and say amen and sit down. Now, nobody has ever got up there and said, I should just say amen and sit down, has said amen and sat down. That is the second biggest lie in America. The biggest lie in America is, Dan, I just need to come and talk to you. Now, I don't want any of your money. I just want to talk to you to get some expertise. So we have grants making, collaboration, innovation, and leadership, because we know, even with the amount of resources that we've been entrusted with, that we can be excellent stewards and excellent grants makers, but if we don't have collaboration, that's one of the words I want to talk about, we can't get there. So that's why we're part of this party and not the whole party. And then what we want is prosperity and growth for people all across the state. And that's already been widely talked about, so I'm not going to beat that dog. So what exactly is infrastructure, right? We think of it in two ways. We think of human infrastructure and we think of physical infrastructure. I was the governor's senior advisor for fiscal affairs, right? The Fiscal Research Division serves the General Assembly. This word often gets confused with physical. And so what happens is, one time I was referred to in the media, not by Triangle Business Journal, but by another one, as the senior advisor for physical affairs for the governor, which would have been far more interesting than what I actually did. But it's not what I actually did. And if you look at me and think, God, that guy, we need to have somebody else do that job. So let's look at what infrastructure is, right? You can read the definition here. And so what do you think the structures are? So here's the audience participation. So when you think of infrastructure on the physical side, what do you think of? Just shout it out. You hear roads, you hear water, you have sewer, you have broadband. Buildings, communications, broadband, roads, housing, leadership. Oh, come on, that's later. All right, so we got a good start. So that's the kind of things we think of as infrastructure, right? So we have funded, since I've been with the foundation a little bit before, went back a few years, almost 10 years, 175 projects worth about $130 million in infrastructure. We do a lot of infrastructure, right? So what kind of infrastructure do we do? We do water and sewer. That's a big thing, right? Water and sewer, for a long time in our state's history, that was the sine qua non, which is Latin for you really need that to have some economic development, right? No water, no sewer, nobody's going to build a plant, right, Mr. McMichael? No plants, right? Okay, water and sewer. But then look what came up. What did the speakers just talk to you about? They talked about broadband. There's Patrick Woody from the Rural Center. He can't say a sentence without saying broadband in it, right? Because that's what he hears about. We need broadband. So what was our big expenditure in broadband? Our big expenditure in broadband was not trying to do what the private sector does, but was going into working with MCNC and the Research and Education Network to provide the middle mile broadband to buy or to build 1,802.7 miles of broadband literally from Murphy to Manio and beyond that. And that's how all the schools got connected, and the universities and everything else. Now, do we got that done? No, but we've got a lot of the highway built. We just need some off-ramps to get it to the rest of it. And then we've done some other things. But this is part of what we do, right? I mean, and how do you get money out of Golden Leaf? Well, you get money out of Golden Leaf in two ways. One is that you are aligned in terms of job creation and private investment, right? You have a vision. Like right now, we're working on a project, not going to name it, Pitt County. And they said, okay, what we need is this little bit of infrastructure money, and the company was satisfied that in this industrial park that they can put this project together and they can locate and they can create jobs and everything else. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We'll do those kind of grants all day long. But now we're going to have to talk about a little bit in a major part about this is what you have to do. And my quote in the program is this, so I'm saying my quote. Whatever my quote is in that program, I'm saying it now. But it goes something like this. Is in order for you to have a plan for any of these 5 building blocks, you have to show what's going to be the business result from it. All right? It could be big or small. It could be Pollocksville. Let me take a random example to happen to be known to Senator Harry Brown, not sucking up to you because of your district, sir. But in Pollocksville, they're a little bitty town, and they got NC-17 coming through there, and they need a little bit of infrastructure because they know there's going to be exit there, and they see some economic development potential. So I said, oh, I got it. There's an exit in Sampson County on the other end of the room. Ed calls, did the same thing. There's an exit. You get water and sewer, and you can see that there will be jobs there because people will be driving by there and need to do something, create businesses, whatever. They had a clear sense of this. Now, if you come to us, we need infrastructure. Why? Well, because you gave infrastructure to that next town over, and they are just nasty and their high school's mean and everything else, and I didn't like them. I mean, that doesn't help me. We need a clear vision of what business outcomes are going to happen. So when you were told about the private sector, what Jason Sain told you about the private sector, he was not kidding around. So who else does this? This is the second part of the sermon. First sermon was about Golden Leaf, how great we are. Now, in truth, I bet 10 years there. And one thing I know is that I am the first to tell you that we don't do everything well. Well, I'm not the first to tell you because a lot of y'all have been the first to tell me. But we need to figure out how to do this better. But one thing we know is we want to work well with partners because we want to be the last money in. We want to fill gaps. The United States government has some programs that I have up here. The state government has some programs that I have come up here. And then in various agencies, and we work with all these agencies. We also work with a couple agencies I will tell you about. One is the Appalachian Regional Commission. Where are you, Olivia Collier? General. There you go. Good to see you. It's an invisible ink on there, but you're on there in my mind, you know. And the North Carolina Railroad. Where are you, Anna Lee Moore? You recovered from last night? Okay, she's not here. But in any case, here are the big questions. This is the third part of the sermon, and then I'm going to end. There is public infrastructure, and this is private infrastructure, and we need both. What is public infrastructure? Well, this is water, things usually ran by a government, right? It's the water, it's the sewer, it's the roads, it's things of that nature. What is private infrastructure? A private infrastructure is usually, with respect, the electric membership co-ops, a couple of their people, and they've been great sponsors of the conference, by the way, thank you for that. They're going to come up here and talk in a second right after me. But the electric industry, you know, we have IOU, you know, the investor-owned utilities. We have some public-owned. We have some, you know, owned by the people who are served by it in form of the co-ops and so forth. That's kind of private-ish, right? Natural gas, a lot of natural gas. You know, that's now become more and more a necessity. Is generally a private sector concern for most of the state, some not in some of the municipalities, but mainly. And then broadband, of course, is generally has been long the province of the private sector in a lot of areas. And so how do we deal with that? Because one thing what we will not do at Golden Leaf is trespass on what the private sector can do much more efficiently than the public sector can do. And what we don't want to do is subsidize competition to the private sector. This gets the private sector very anxious because what we're trying to do is help them, not compete with them. Then I think we need to look at a broad definition of what is infrastructure, right? We got a lot of the traditional things, but let's think about infrastructure. And one of the most important things that was just said was hear what Senator Brown just told you about school construction. And as long as I've known Senator Brown, I remember back to the lottery debate where he argued that 100% of that money should go to school construction right away. And he's been working on it ever since to get it back to where it should be. But think about that, because if you're anybody trying to locate and they drive by a school, and I've been to Jones Senior, and I understand what a transformational point that's going to mean. You have an excellent superintendent, a great program. We supported it through the digital learning and so forth. But when you get those kids in that new building, they're going to be hyped because then they're going to know that somebody cares enough them to trust them in this beautiful facility. Bertie County did a great job. You go to Bertie County's high school, it's transformational, right? So school buildings are part of this infrastructure of economic development. Libraries are part of this. Why are libraries part of it? I'm a card-carrying member of a public library. I freely confess it. But the reason why libraries are is because it's a lot of place where people who don't have broadband access or who don't want to go to the school or get nervous about it, have some community college that's a little bit, doesn't make them comfortable, can go to a library and work about how to find a job, how to do research about what kind of jobs are out there and everything else. That library really has been part of that infrastructure of what's going on. Maggie Sauer, right after me, the brilliant, talented Maggie Sauer, who, thank the Lord, I mean, has gone from her leadership as a nonprofit director into state government. We'll talk about healthcare. But healthcare is infrastructure, right? Because think about if your hospital is not there, if you have to drive 40 miles to get to a hospital, no manufacturer is going to be there where, God forbid, something happens to their plant, they got to go 40 miles. Nobody in these beautiful places in North Carolina where we have people retired to from all over the world, all over the country and so forth, and who retire in place, they want to know that there's some quality health care right there. That's part of the infrastructure when the economic developers are pitching this. some of our biggest job creation. So we have to have a broad definition what is infrastructure. And that's kind of what we're working on. And then I think we have to talk about the timing of when we have the infrastructure ready. Now, it used to be that the world came to North Carolina. It was like, in some ways, when I was living in not going to tell you where in New York, but everybody's coming to North Carolina, right? I mean, it's like Forbes saying best place in the world to live, and on, and you come down here and you understand it. And then so as economic development was, certainly we have a lot going for us. I'd rather be here than in most other places. But it's an increasingly competitive, increasingly fast-moving game. And the purpose of this is not to tell the local economic developers who are here what you already know, because you know this, but to tell EDP&C ratifying that comment that indeed that is exactly how it is, because you have to be ready to go. And so we had to do some things that we don't want to do, which take a lot more risk. So we had a program a couple years ago called the Major Sites Development Initiative. We worked on it with our friends from the Department of Commerce, the North Carolina Railroad, and Duke Energy, excuse me, I'm dating myself, and to say is how can we get some of these sites ready to go? And so what happened? Where's Oppie Jordan? Oppie swore she was going to be. Oppie? Okay, let me tell a story on Oppie. Oppie Jordan is a longtime developer in Edgecombe County. Edgecombe County, traditionally top 5 in unemployment rate, one of the hardest places, right there in my backyard as we're sitting there in Rocky Mount to get places. Now, she started working on a mega site a decade ago. The North Carolina Economic Developers Association this year recognized Norris Tolson as the Developer of the Year for all the work he's done on CSX, on Triangle Tyre, on Corning, and so forth. And that's deserved. Norris Tolson is a great leader. He's been a great mentor to me. But I'll tell you what, it was Oppie Jordan working, grinding it out to get that site together, get this flat land right on US 64 together, that enabled them to, in December to celebrate the largest job creation project east of 95 since Spirit Air Systems in the form of Triangle Tyre. And it took the General Assembly came in there and said, what do you need to make that happen? And the General Assembly delivered on that. And we were proud to be part of it because we got the infrastructure ready in place so that the Chinese, when the Chinese came over, said, we're serious, we're putting money down because we believed in the site. And that was important. Then go to the other end of the state, Cleveland County. My friend Wes Westmoreland from Cleveland County, Vice Chair of the Rural Infrastructure Authority. Thanks for your service on that, sir. But you and I know well that on the west end of Shelby, where Clearwater Paper started a plant, Shelby put in, out of their own pocket, a lot more money than I thought they had in the water and sewer to make sure they could get these jobs there. Clearwater was so pleased with it, they said, we want to do more on the other side of the road. And so they came back to us and said, we got the site. We think Clearwater's going to come, but we need some help to get the site ready, but we don't have the guarantee yet. We said, absolutely, we would do that. So what did it take for us to do these things, to make these bets on spec? That some of them have already set up. We put some money into the mega sites in the Triad of Liberty, Moncure, and Siler City, and I believe those will pay off. But I'll tell you what we're going to do. If we don't figure out a way to work together to start developing more of this infrastructure, get these places more ready, then we are not going to be successful in a 21st century economic development recruiting. Then we are going to make Chris Chung and his team sell out an empty wagon. We need to fill up the wagon with that kind of product. The Department of Commerce just announced some of the grants through the Select Sites initiative, or Smart Sites, some sites thing, I don't know. Whatever it was great. They kind of stole our playbook. We're glad to let them steal it. The General Assembly funded it, and so they just announced a lot of grants in it. But right now, the utility fund, that is the only other source of fund besides us to do some of the speculative investment, is a little dry. The reason it's dry because, they went out there and committed all this money. But guess what? Do y'all still have money you need from them? Yes, you do. So we're going to have to figure out ways to do that. But that is the trend. These are the big questions, friends, is that infrastructure is a much more diverse definition than it was 10 years ago. That public and private infrastructure, we have to figure out a way how to get that private infrastructure to provide incentives. And I think the broadband program is a great start on that type of thing. And how do we do that and do more of it? And then the timing of having an infrastructure is going to be important to close this down. So what is the foundation do we want? Is what we want to do the part that needs to move North Carolina forward is the following. One is our board is going to see that you are in, that there is some kind of local commitment. We understand that y'all don't have a lot of money, by definition. But when you put a little bit of your own money in, and it means a lot to you, it's the widow's mite, from the Bible, right? Then we see, okay, this is not just, you'll do this if it's somebody else's money, that you're involved in this. And I can assure you on the other building blocks, when you say when you look at what we've invested in human infrastructure, on the human infrastructure side, when you heard about Rutherford County going global, we funded that. When you listen to Wilson Academy for Applied Technology, we funded that. Because local participation was there with the vision of here's how it's going to get to the business community. Here's how it's going to serve the business community. And so on infrastructure, it has to be the same way. That it's not going to be what some government official comes to me and says. It's going to be what a business guy or gal says to me. This is going to make sense. This is going to open up this corridor. It's going to open up this business park. This is how this can work. Because if we don't have that, then what we're going to have is some places where we have infrastructure in, and it's crickets listening for the client to come. And sometimes it's because we have the physical infrastructure, not the human infrastructures. Sometimes it's because we have some of the physical infrastructure, but not enough of it, some of the human infrastructure. That is the biggest 5-minute sign in the world. I'm not blind, I'm not that old. Hold that up. Look at you. Girlfriend, I'm almost done. I'm bringing us back on schedule. Hold up. Hold that back up. I got to get a shot of that. Look at this. This is Dan Gerlach ending on time. Hell, I can't see the damn thing. It's too bright. Okay. That is what we're about, all right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to call, Chris, are you coming back up? All right, so Chris and I, we are not native North Carolinians, are we, Chris? But we got here as fast as we could. We were both born in the same county up in Ohio, but we got here because we believe in this product. We believe in the value of it. And what we know is this, is without you to give us ideas and places to invest money, invest our time, and help make the sale, we can't do it. I can't sit by there by the rocking chair outside my Rocky Mount post box waiting for things to happen as if they'll come from man, as if the manna will come from heaven. This I will promise you too, that my colleagues and I, and so I'm joined by some colleagues here today, my colleague Ted Lord, our Vice President of Programs, my colleague Mark Sorrells, the Senior Vice President, now Dr. Mark Sorrells, yep. Got his doctorate from East Carolina University, America's next great national university. And with him today is Bo Biggs from Robinson County. He's one of our board members. He's not a bad fellow to know because, man, if there's economic development in southeastern North Carolina going on, Bo's right in the middle of it. He's a great leader, a great discerner, and he's one of the ones who gets to vote on these things. And so our commitment is this. Our commitment is that we're not just going to sit there and think, God, these people don't know what they're doing. Between the three of us, I think the staff members, we probably put 40,000 miles on our car every year, wouldn't you think? Something like that, 30. Work with me, Ted, come on. 30, 40, 50,000 miles on our car because we understand our job's not to sit in Rocky Mount as if we are some kind of, oracles of Delphi here trying to figure this out. That we have to be on the ground listening to you, trying to figure this out all together. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your attention. Thank you.